Welcome to everyone. This is a new episode of New Ways of Being. And this is going to be another episode in which we talk about consciousness and how raising consciousness can help us change the world. And my guest today is Tezikiah Gabriel, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Sure.
But I'm going to refer to you going forward as Tez, because I know you go by that. And so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Raymond. I'm just honored and delighted to be with you and to be with whoever is watching our podcast.
Very
Thank you.
good. Very good. So there's a lot of things we can talk about today, but again, the topic is how we can change the world by raising consciousness. And I know from your background that you are very much into that, and you are doing some wonderful things. I know that you are a consultant and trainer in your own consulting company, and that you are executive director for Pathways to Peace, which is known certainly in the world of nonprofits and NGOs and anyone and any organization that's involved with unity and peace. And so tell us, the audience, something about how you've been doing all this and what leads you up to today.
Yes. Well, I can honestly say that consciousness, and especially unitive consciousness, has, not to use a pun, but has been on my mind, but also on my heart for a very long time. And so currently, both my consulting firm, Gabriel Associates, for 33 years, we've been around working with nonprofits, and more recently in the last decade with Pathways to Peace. It just allows me to bring that unitive consciousness into practical application. And so
Yes.
Perhaps I can say that when people ask me about what we do at Pathways to Peace, I say that about 50% of our work is directly about expanding unitive consciousness. And the other 50% is about bringing that unitive consciousness into practical application on the ground in our programs, in our practices. So that's where I'm at. And I think my own evolution has been in alignment with kind of what I've known to be true through my connection to the spiritual world, and through ancient wisdom, indigenous wisdom, that's now, as you know, being brought out in science. I just celebrate that merging as increased opportunity to do that work around bringing unity to our planet, driven by love, of course. Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you. And, in talking about unity of consciousness, I find it so good to hear people talking about it and using the words unitive and consciousness together. In my spiritual quest, and I had quite a spiritual exploration process that I went through, but I learned fairly early on that the very traditional spiritual teachers' belief that there is one consciousness.
Yes.
And the universe, basically the physical universe, arises out of that one consciousness.
Okay.
Now, course, most people haven't been exposed to that idea too much. So this may be a new term for many people. How would you define unitive consciousness?
Yes, well, very simply, and I'll expand on it based on what you've said, but very simply, unitive consciousness means a deep awareness that we are, in fact, one,
Yes.
one with all that is, that we are one with each other, we are one with our all living things, we are one with our beautiful Mother Gaia, and we are one with the universe. So, simply defined, that's what unitive consciousness is all about. Now, to play off of what you said, which was perfect for me, is that I have believed for quite some time that there is a field of consciousness that existed before known time. And from that field, all things are manifest. And even though I am directly connected, and I should say, and in addition to, or as supported by, being directly connected to divine source, I believe that that unitive field, which operates everything and of which we can inform through our thoughts, through our words, and to our actions, that that can be called divine source or God or
Yes.
any of the other terms that we use, which are in themselves all one. And so, in that, I would say, as long as you've given me the floor, that there's a need for us to recognize in these times and always, but I think we're ready for it in these times, that there's a need for us to recognize that we are co-creating everything. So whether we're conscious of it or not, we are creating through our, again, our thoughts, through our words, through our actions. We are feeding that field. And again, my hope is that when we recognize that in mass, that we become more intentional with our thoughts, with our words, and with our actions. Because whether we're conscious of it or not, we are feeding that field. And what's coming out of that is creating our own reality here and now. So let's be intentional about our creations
Yes.
so we can co-create a world, a universe, relationships that we wish to create in the world through our
Yes.
conscious intention.
Yes. And so one of the things that I emphasize in this book, and one of the reasons that I'm pursuing this project to help bring this book together, how we can change the world, um, is that we all have a consciousness that uh, arises out of our living in the world, being programmed by the world in certain ways, plus our own thoughts, what we choose to think, our own intentions, etc. But most of the world, I would say, is at the consciousness level of ego and particularly the belief in separation.
Yeah.
And out of separation arises fear in all its forms.
Yes.
And most people aren't conscious of how, you know, that is the case, that we are uh, taught to believe in separation, and that we have a choice to change that. And I believe we need a shift from separation and fear to unity and love. And
Absolutely.
and that's kind of like the opposite, so people may not make that full step in one step. They may take time and make multiple steps to learn what unity is and learn what love is in in being embodied and really felt and expressed in the world. Um, but so those are the terms I use, and different people use different expressions. It's all a good thing. But the what I really believe is that we need more sharing of this idea that we have the ability to become more conscious, to, if we talk about levels of consciousness, to raise our consciousness to a higher level. And we directly will benefit from that in many ways.
I do.
And when we do that, the world will benefit as well. Now, do you have a different perspective, or?
No, I don't have a different perspective. I'm totally in alignment, totally in attunement with that. And so maybe I can just maybe expand a little bit around and unpack some of those things you said. Um, and again, in total alignment, I would say that there, from my perspective, there is only love and fear. And so if we want to examine kind of our motives for being, that we just examine through that lens. Am I responding or reacting or creating out of love? And if not, it's going to be fear. And fear it's very challenging, if not impossible, to create when you're in fear, because fear prohibits that creativity. I think also that we have the choice, really the choice, it's always about choice, to transcend that narrative of separation, which I agree with you, is at the root of everything that we perceive to be wrong about our planet today, lies at the root of that narrative of separation, which we need to shift. But we can transcend that. We can choose to transcend that and to embrace and then embody love. And when we do that, we have a direct connection to and are feeding that field of that in which we are creating the kind of planet we wish to be in. So that's a little convoluted. I could probably clarify it, but I think you know what I mean by it. And so it's always about choice. And the more we choose love, the kind of natural evolution occurs. And people have often asked me, when you talk about embodying unitive consciousness, what does that mean? And for me, one of the key pieces is about bringing love into every interaction. That's a choice.
Yes.
And the more we do that, the more we bring love to everything. I mean, it contributes to our own evolution. I think also that one of the reasons that people might move into fear when it comes to choosing unity, choosing love, is that they're afraid they're going to lose something, like lose their personal identity, lose something of what they have been taught and have learned about who they are. And I can tell you, after years of, choosing unitive consciousness as my way of life, that it is so richly rewarding. It opens up avenues that I could have never imagined. And the joy that comes with it is enormous. So I always feel like people need to know that the choice to love, the choice for unity, the choice for peace and kindness and compassion and gratitude really is its own reward. We lose nothing, but we gain everything. And so, yeah, there's so much more that could be said, but those are
Yes,
off
yes,
the
that's very, very good. Yeah, you brought up some good important points there. It does seem that uh, people, many people do confuse or think of unity in terms of uniformity,
Yes,
and that's not the case. That's
right.
the holistic world is very diverse,
Yes,
and that diversity is important. It is a part of an evolving universe and an evolving world, and so the diversity is important. And I love that term now that's fairly common among uh, evolutionary leaders, at least, of unity in diversity is
absolutely.
is an important idea that people need to know that that's the case. And no, we don't lose anything when we unify. In fact, we gain the support and the oh boy, I can't think of the right words, but we gain the support of the universe around us.
Yes, to
And
be ourselves, to be who we came here to be, which is the most joyous journey we could ever be on. That's where the support of the universe comes in. And, that's what we came here for. This whole lifetime is about um, coming into who we were intended to be. And, to try to get a bit of a glimpse into how unitive consciousness supports us as individuals in all of our own glorious diversity, because that gets covered when we feel like we have to conform to a lot of the cultural kind of stereotypical or expectations of who we are. Our own being doesn't have a chance to flourish. And so, again, to just step back to where I started, that it's our unitive consciousness really supports not only us as who we were intended to be, but it's deeply connected to our purpose here. And so, one of the exercises that I often take people through is to think back as far as they can in their own history here, their own childhood, and to think about a time, a situation, a circumstance where they were totally in their glory. And sometimes they'll say, well, what do you mean totally in your glory? And it's kind of like how you felt just infinite joy. You felt like you were doing what you should be doing. You feel like that freedom and that recognition of the value you are. And for a lot of people, that's really, really early in their childhood. And if you think about that and remember, because that's what it's about these days, is really remembering who we truly are as divine beings. If you can remember what was happening at that time, you not only have an insight into who you truly are, but you have insight into your purpose here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we get free from all the binding social constructs that have been given to us, we are free to be who we are and to pursue the purpose we came here for. And there's nothing more glorious or rewarding than that.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. And I agree completely. You've said a few things that I kind of wanted to pick up on. One was the very important idea, a very important word of choice. Choice is so important, and but people have to understand, because of our programming, we can't just make that once and expect it to stick and be a total new experience. It's a choice we have to remind ourselves to keep making until it becomes a habit, at least. And even beyond that, we still have to make the choice of love and unity. And those two concepts, they could be defined as different things, but they really go together in my mind. Unity is very much defined by love, and I believe that it's a force in the universe that enables unity, and more than that, it actually enables creation and life itself. And it's so much. It's very important. It's not, and some people, it's probably takes a little bit of shift to understand love in universal terms, not just in terms of romance.
Right.
Yeah, I would say it's a big thing when you understand that you are being empowered by the universe to live a life and create a life, and I guess I should say co-create a life that that you want to create. It's very, very powerful, very freeing and empowering, and but it's very important.
Yes. And it's not only freeing and empowering, it can be very scary. And what I mean by that is that at some point, when you think about that, you recognize, even though for me, that the term has long since left, but there's an obligation there. When you recognize that you are empowered by the universe, then you recognize how important your thoughts, your words, and your actions become, because they are feeding that creation that we talked about. And so I think that's a part of, so I would say, for me, I can only speak to my own experience, that owning that power of who I truly am felt like it came with an obligation to live up to it. And and I only kind of felt nervous about that for a short time when the absolute incredible love and power and authority and agency to be who I was in the world overcame that. But it can feel kind of scary. I'll just use that term.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of the reasons that we often hear from folks that, you want me, to kind of choose unitive consciousness and to believe that there's a greater plan and we're all creating it together. And look at what's happening in the world,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you expect me to, look at what's happening in the world? And I'll be very bold, and I'm always willing to be challenged from anyone about anything that I believe. But I believe that's a choice, to be a victim versus
Mm-hmm.
and versus being the powerful individual that you are. And so I can say, I can't, I can't transcend this. Look at what's happening. The world is terrible, which, by the way, doesn't mean that we don't have deep compassion for the suffering of people in the world. And for certain, we do that. We have deep compassion and we lift all of those people and the planet herself into love and healing. However, we cannot let the perceived woes of the world keep us from bringing our light to the world, because
Yes.
then we are feeding all of that negativity that's in the field. We're feeding that. And the only thing that will come from that is more of it. Once we recognize the power we have, we recognize the obligation we have to feed the field with love, with unity, with peace, with compassion, with kindness, with gratitude, all of the things that we want our world to be for all of its inhabitants. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, very good. Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. It can be scary to think that you have the power to create more of life, and not only, people have the power to affect others,
Absolutely.
and that's something that's not understood either. We think everything out there
All
in the world is
separate.
causing all of this, and there's nothing we can do about it, and that indeed is victimhood. But that's exactly what this conversation is all about. We need more people sharing this information, that we can overcome that. We can change, beginning with ourselves. We can change how we are responding to what is happening. And yes, that does mean we step up to some responsibility. We make a choice, and it's not easy to do. Again, it doesn't happen with just saying at one time or thinking at one time. Today everything may be great. Tomorrow we may have a bad day and say, what in the world, why do I think I could change any of this? And we have to keep telling ourselves, no, we have more power than we know.
Yes.
And and it's a matter of learning. Again, it does require a shift in consciousness. And I would love to see the day that I can see more visible expression of a higher consciousness in the world. This is not going to be a small thing to change in the world. It's going to take time, but it only begins by you and I and others, uh, making our choice and then sharing that with others and in whatever way we can.
Yes, exactly. And, it can take time, but, I would say that I'm very privileged, and I suspect you are too, Raymond, to be with people who do recognize that we are all one, that there is no separation, and that we are changing the world. And it can take time, or it can happen in a holy instant, where that critical mass change occurs, that 100th monkey. And I believe that that will happen, and will happen sooner versus later. And in terms of, how to make it happen and how to really move from, the cultural learning about separation into recognizing we are all one, that it can happen through choosing love in the moment in practice, and like bringing love into our personal relationships, bringing love into our personal decisions, bringing love into our workplace, choosing love. I mean, because that gets us there as well.
And I like what you just said there, because we can bring love into the work that we are doing.
Yes,
Even if I'm not working with anyone else around me,
that's right.
uh, when we choose that, it is empowering in a certain way. And I don't know that I can explain it. I can just encourage people to choose love and see what they experience.
Yes. And a lot of my amazing colleagues in this work around consciousness are deep meditators, that have really mastered that. And I meditate, but my meditation isn't very disciplined. It's like traversing the universe every morning, just allowing my consciousness to feel that oneness. And then my mantra is, help me to remember to bring love into every interaction. And so then I can step back, and all I have to do is bring love into every one of those interactions in my day, with the people around me, with the work that I'm doing with groups, with my family members, just everything. And then to watch how things shift when that occurs. And love is the great healer. And so bringing love into anything, and I'm more disciplined about ramping up my lightheartedness and the love that I bring when I'm entering into a situation that's potentially can cause conflict, because it just allows us to transcend so much of our perceived differences and to move into the heart, to listen and to speak from the heart, to listen for understanding and speak from the heart. It just changes everything. And I think the way, as you mentioned earlier, Raymond, about how do you move from, you didn't say this, it's the way I interpreted it. How do you move from romantic love to somewhat of an understanding or an engagement or an embracing and embodying universal love is really through bringing love into all of those interactions on the planet. That's how you begin to really see the healing that it creates, the bridging it creates, the understanding of our own soul's evolution through that connection to others and source. So it's a way there. And I keep thinking about our folks who have been involved with AA, and because everything applies to everything. And so one of the messages through Alcoholics Anonymous is that you can shift your mind by shifting your practice as much as you can, shift your mind to shift your practice. It works both ways. So if you wonder about how to get there, start practicing. Choose love. Bring it into everything you do. And bring a curious mind and a light heart. Play with it.
Yes.
And then watch what happens. How things shift and change when you do bring love into the equation.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you for saying that. That's important. Let's talk a little bit about your experience and in Pathways to Peace. How many years have you been involved in that?
I'm going on my 9th year. And I was able to work with our beloved Avon Madison, who most everybody on the podcast, if they're engaged with the field that we're talking about, a piece of unitive consciousness, will know about Avon. She was very beloved. So I worked with her for 4 years. And today is the 4th anniversary of her passing. And so when she passed, when she ascended, she's still very much working on the other side of the veil and directing what we're doing for peace in the world. And so I've been 4 years as kind of picking up that legacy and moving it forward.
Okay. And how, what's your experience been with promoting unity of consciousness in all of those activities, with the United Nations and peace initiatives of different type? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it looks like bringing love. And so it's been incredible. Just the loving relationships that we've created with our programs on the ground. The fact that Pathways to Peace had such a long history, now 41 years, with the UN and in the peace building movement, has meant that we've had access to just a lot of opportunities to create change. And so I've been allowed to, not only allowed, that's not the word that's really correct. It's like I've had the privilege and the opportunity to be engaged with many, many, many global movements that embrace unity of consciousness and to bring that into our work. And I have not had no negative experiences with it. Instead, And it could be that I'm not interpreting them as negative because, I encourage people to challenge openly so that we can develop some greater understanding. Every time that happens, it gives me a deeper understanding of myself and what I believe and about unitive consciousness itself. It evolves my own soul. And so my own soul evolution, which is what we're here for. And so it could be I just don't recognize them, and others may perceive them as negative. But for me, it's been a pathway of love. And so it's very rewarding and satisfying, and it may look like I've initiated a whole lot of things, a lot of amazing programs, and but really, I've just used the sacred yes. When the opportunity comes up, I know that it's spirit behind it. And so I just say yes, and then I get to ride that flow. And that's been really rewarding as well. And so even though sometimes my physical self feels very tired because I've been running as fast as I can to keep up with that energetic flow. It has been with grace and ease and gratitude that I've been able to bring my full self in its incomplete state to all of that work and to just allow spirit to move through me.
That's wonderful. I interviewed Robert Atkinson, and we talked a bit about a book that he wrote, The Story of Our Times. And I asked him the question, I said, in that book, you were so optimistic, and it came out 8 years ago. You were so optimistic about the progress that was happening in the shift of consciousness and moving more towards unity of consciousness. And I asked him, we look at the world, are you less optimistic now? And he said, no, he's not, even though it appears that in many ways things are much worse. Certainly the situation in the Middle East is just disheartening. But there is a lot of motion that people don't see.
That's right.
The shift is happening, and all we can keep doing is sharing this idea of love and unity and raising our consciousness. And it sounds like that's very true for you as well.
Absolutely. And Bob is a beloved partner. So I love him very much, and we get to work together on unitive consciousness, and he's very dedicated to peace. For him, if we live in a world of unitive consciousness where the masses have now recognized we are all one, that peace prevails on earth. And of course, we come together around that. I believe that too. And because a lot of people will say, I don't know about that. It's not really peace. It could be this, this, and this. I always say, however you imagine that world, peace prevails, but so does compassion, so does love, so does gratitude, so does kindness. So it is, as dear Dr. Jude Currivan, who is another beloved partner, says, it is a world that works for all in all ways. And I am, as I said earlier, I believe that it could happen in my lifetime. And I am up there in age, and I love it to be. And when people say, there's so much going on in the world. What could I do?
Yeah.
I let them know that just holding that light and that love and bringing that into practice on the planet, that is action.
Yes.
That is action. And if your heart leads you, because it's spirit's leading, into some other action, follow it.
Mm.
But it's enough to feed that field with your light and your love, your intention, that you embody that.
Yes. Something that just came to me too is Bob said that um, you know, evolution is happening,
It is.
whether we see it or not. Evolution is happening. Jude says the same
Yeah.
thing. Evolution is happening, and we have to recognize, if we stop and look at humanity over several thousands of years, we're still just trying to come out of our adolescence phase. And that's a turbulent phase. And he uses a phrase that I like. He talks about there's a process that has a beginning and an end, and in the middle, it's a muddle. And
Yeah.
we're in that muddle. We see the muddle and how bad it is, but we have to keep moving ahead, keep choosing to create what we want to create, not what we don't want.
That's right.
And
Bring intention.
yes, our intentions, and we will pass through that at some point.
Yeah. And, you know, I, again, I sure I see it slightly differently. But for me, I think that, like, I don't want to waste my time focusing on the muddle,
Right.
because focusing
Absolutely.
on the muddle will create more muddle. And
Yes.
so I'm transcending that and holding on to that vision of the new earth and how that looks and feels and tastes. And I think it's another thing that we can, as powerful human beings, we are so powerful beyond our wildest imagination. If we own it and move with it, that we recognize that we're creating it, as you said, but also that we can hold that vision, and that vision itself shapes and informs the field of consciousness. And it also shapes and informs our own behavior. I've had that vision from the time I was a young child. And so I can honestly say that it has shaped and informed my entire life and my entire life journey. Now, I've had some spiritual awakenings and initiations along the way, but that vision is still clear and strong. And so, again, I would encourage people, because it helps us transcend what is we perceive to see in the external world that doesn't fit that vision, but it helps us to transcend it, to keep our eyes on that prize. So it's another thing we can do. Again, my role on the planet, my purpose has always been to implement what I believe. It's not just to, even though I love being in the discussions about all of the beautiful research and philosophy and beliefs around all of this, which it just feels to me like an incredible privilege. My purpose is to take it and turn it into action. So that's
That's
just
that.
what my purpose is. Everyone is different. So I been kind of throughout our time, hopefully been giving some practical application to our movement in mass toward unitive consciousness.
Yes, and since I started this project of we can change the world, I've been just amazed and pleased. I've discovered many more organizations that are active in this area, are working from this kind of consciousness than I was aware of before. And, for example, I looked at your website and saw your list of consulting clients, and just of and that's not a list of all
Right.
nonprofit organizations. It was a huge list of how many nonprofits there are out there. And, those are all, maybe this isn't correct to say, but I think lots of those were founded with love and unity of
Yeah.
consciousness in mind.
Yeah.
And so it's so good to see that in the world.
Yes, it's so true. I know I said it a little bit earlier, but there are so many of us holding that vision, holding that light, modeling in our own lives that unitive consciousness. And it's changing everything. And again, those of us who are close to it, it's a huge privilege to recognize that not everybody has that. However, we know that everyone is on that path to unitive consciousness. Where you're at on the path, you can escalate that or you can resist it, and it may, translate into time, taking more time or less time. But the destination belongs to all of us, and we're all going to get there. So, being able to kind of have the privilege to the information and others who hold it really helps some of us move along that path. But all of us are on it. So, yeah.
Well, I agree 100%. And Tez, this has been just a pleasure for me to have you on and to have this conversation with you. You really have this true wisdom that you've been sharing that is just beautiful to see. And again, thank you for being here and sharing that wisdom, because listeners, even though probably most of the listeners to this podcast are somewhat tuned into this, it still needs to be put out there in the world, and need to keep sharing the message. We can change the world. We can raise our consciousness. We can make a difference, and we can experience a grander life in the process. And so you've said that throughout this conversation. Thank you. Any final words you would like to share?
Mhm. Well, maybe I would say that even though when we look around at the external world, it may look dire, we are living in glorious times, unprecedented times, where the merging of science with spirituality, ancient wisdom, indigenous wisdom has come together. And we now have an even better platform to share with others what we know to be true. And that it is about just becoming who we were intended to be, which is powerful, and that we can choose to use that power for the good of all. It's not power over, it's personal power that goes with remembering who we truly are. So I just encourage everyone to let go of any fear, to rise into the vision you have of the world, and to pick up your own journey of joy and let us traverse together. Thank you.
Beautiful. Go ahead and share your websites.
It is, I'll share the one that people will be most interested in, which is pathways2peace.org, all lowercase letters. That's pathways2peace.org.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
been wonderful. Yes. And to my audience, have a great day and a great life.